Hi there! Thank you so much for joining us today in this webinar presentation. My name is Gareth Dyke and I am presenting academic training today entitled 3 Things That You Must Know Before You Start to Write That Next Academic Article. You can follow our company on Twitter, you can check me out on Instagram, you can see our editorial services, our academic training at Diffusion Editing, the name of our company. You can get in touch with us if you enjoy this webinar presentation today, if you find it useful, if you would like to have additional training perhaps for your institution, for your journal, or personally. Thank you again for joining us today. Let's get started by initially talking about what my background is in academic research and academic training. I worked for a number of years as an academic in a range of different countries, Ireland, in the UK and in Hungary, as well as in the US. I'm an editor, a journal manager, and I work a lot with academic articles. So some of the tricks and some of the tips that I've picked up over the course of my academic career, I hope I can share with you and help you to turn those decades into days and telescope the experience that we have in order to avoid making some of the mistakes that we've made in the past, that I've certainly made in the past in my academic career. We're going to be talking this afternoon today about some tricks that you can apply in your own academic writing before you start. Most people write academic papers without giving it the necessary thought. They sit down, they start to write, they get going with the writing process without a clear plan. And it's so important to think about your efficiency as an academic writer. There are 3 things to know, 3 things to have in mind before you start to write. If you have these in place, if you've put the thought into these 3 things before sitting down to write that next academic paper, you can very dramatically increase your efficiency in the writing process. You need to know before you start to write about your message, about your audience, and about the structure of your writing. The message, the audience, and the structure. And we'll talk in this short presentation today in a little bit more detail about each of these things. This is happening, remember, before you sit down and start to type or start to write in your notebook, before you put down the content of your academic paper. You may have finished your research project, you've finished the data collection, you've finished the analysis, you've finished the work. Think about initially what the main message is of the study that you want other people reading the work to get out of the study. And here's a teaching technique that we often use in our training, in our workshops around the world, telling young researchers to think about the message of their academic work before they start to write. It is, by the way, a very common interview question that people often get asked when they come for PhD interviews in the UK, for example. Explain to me in simple terms the message of this project, of this research, in a way that anybody could understand. Your grandmother, or perhaps a bus driver, people who are paying taxes, funding the government, funding your research. It's so critically important to think about getting your message across. What is the single take-home message of your academic article? What is the one thing that you want people to get out of the reading experience? That is key to think about before you start to write. It's key to think about when you come to sell your work to academic journals. Don't write without this plan in place, and know what the key message of your study is before you start to write. Indeed, editors and peer reviewers who are looking at your work and assessing it for publication will be looking for a simple, clear message, especially in leading high impact factor academic journals. If editors can't work out your single take home message, they will likely reject your paper before sending it out for peer review. As you know, leading international journals with high impact factors have high rejection rates. Up to 9 out of 10 papers submitted to Nature, submitted to Science, get rejected by the editor before they get sent out for peer review, the so-called editorial triage process. It's like getting hit by a car on the road, getting taken to the hospital, to the emergency room. A doctor will initially assess you. They will triage you to determine what should happen next. That's what editors do in the editorial office before deciding whether or not to send your article out for peer review. Editors will also reject if they haven't been convinced of your study's importance. This is why it's so critical to have a clear, effective, take-home message from your study. Think about the most significant thing that you've discovered, the most significant conclusion, the most important multidisciplinary result of your analysis. That's the selling point. That's what you want people to get out of the study. And it helps if you can relate your work to something that's broadly interesting, a hot topic perhaps, something that lots of people in lots of different research fields will be interested in learning about: climate change, the growth of cities, chemical reactions in the upper atmosphere. I don't know your research field. This will determine how you can sell your message in a multidisciplinary way. Always remember that editors looking at journal articles are primarily interested in keeping their readers interested. You, as an academic writer, are not necessarily thinking about your readers when you put your article together, but you should be. Like writing a novel, like writing a book, like writing a film, it's the readers, the users, who are going to be most important. This is another reason why having a clear message in your academic work is so important before starting to write. So prepare to write. Don't just sit down, as I used to do, and start to type. Prepare. Check the original nature of your results, the story, the take-home message. The first thing to know before you start to write is your message. Is it new and interesting? And if so, why? How does your work relate to a currently hot topic? What's new and challenging about your research? Do you provide a solution, for example, to a difficult problem? Before you sit down and write your next academic article, think about your message and try to assemble your message into 1 or 2 sentences before you write the article itself. Having the clear message, knowing what it is that's so important and interesting about your study will help you with being effective when you put the work together. The message is key in academic writing. The second thing to know then is, who are your audience? And in academic writing, the audience is the same thing as the target journal, right? So each journal is different, of course. Each target journal will be different, but effective targeting for your research idea, having a journal in mind before you write, is also key to being effective. 3 rules for target journal selection: aim high, choose appropriately, and learn to sell and manage your submission. We recommend making a list of target journals in your field. We can help with this process. We can make suggestions as to which journals would be most appropriate depending on your particular research area, depending on your particular research study. But PhD students in the UK, for example, are taught: make a list of journals in your field, rank them by impact factor, top to bottom, and always aim high with those submissions. Try to preferentially publish or submit to journals with higher impact factors initially. Having said that, though, of course, you can't publish everything that you write in Nature and Science, so choosing appropriately is also hugely important. And in this context, it's very important to think about making inquiries to editors before you write your articles. Send emails, send pre-submission inquiries to journals. You can send 10, you can send 20, you can send 30 inquiry emails to editors before you start to write with your message in mind and say, would you be interested in seeing this work appear in your journal? Would you be interested in considering this study for publication in your journal? Maybe some editors will write back nothing. Maybe some editors will come back with, no thank you, that's not appropriate for our journal, but you might wish to consider this alternative venue, give you another suggestion. Or an editor might come back and say, yes, this sounds good. Thank you for the inquiry. We would be interested in seeing that article published in our journal. And if that happens, you get a positive response to a pre-submission inquiry. You've already moved your paper forward in the publishing process. You've already made a step in the right direction. You've already increased your chances of getting the paper finally published in that particular venue before you start to write. So audience, target journal, the second thing to know before you start to write, is also hugely important. And we, of course, can help you with editing services, with advice, with consultancy to manage and sell your submissions to journals to maximize your potential as a researcher. So before you start to write, choose your topic, identify your audience, know the purpose of your writing project, know the purpose of your publication, and of course, gather those supporting details. Journals are all different. They have different readerships, and that's the mindset to get into when writing an academic paper. Think about the readers, think about the audience, make those pre-submission inquiries, increase your chances of eventual acceptance. Most authors, most academic authors, they write up articles, then they think about which journal they're going to send the article to. Then they have to reformat the article, then they submit, and then they wait, often months at a time, before they get back a response, which could be a rejection or it could be a major revisions. Don't make those mistakes. Pre-submit inquiries to journals, move the process forward, maximize your potential as a young researcher. Now, thirdly, and perhaps most importantly in academic writing, the third thing to know before you start to write is the structure of the writing itself. Message, audience, target journal, and structure. And of course, once you've picked a journal, once you've identified a journal for your next writing project, you've gotten a positive response back from the editor, you're ready to actually start to write the article, it will be different, the structure, depending on the target journal, a little bit. But by and large, academic articles tend to have similar structures to them, shown here, the general structure of a full academic article. And we have other presentations that we can send you that will help you to clearly understand the details of the structure of academic articles and academic writing. We can give you templates that you can use to write the different sections of your next academic paper easily. This is important, especially if English is not your first language. Check out this slide though, because this is very important. The general structure of an academic article has two sections to it. Two sections, the title and the abstract, that's one section, and the rest of the paper, the so-called main text or the IMRAD structure in academic writing, that's the other part of the academic paper. Two sections. You should put as much time and energy into the title and the abstract of your next paper in terms of the structure as you put into the rest of the article. Why? Because often this is the only bit that people read. The title and the abstract are often used by editors to make decisions about whether or not to send articles out for peer review. Very important. Think about your message, get that into the title, get your message clearly in the abstract, and tell the reader, tell the editor, tell the peer reviewer in the abstract what you did in the study. We can provide additional training and other presentations to help you write effectively these different sections, but ask yourself also, when was the last time you read the whole of an academic paper? Probably not that often. Most people just read the title and the abstract. That's why it's so important to put the effort and the energy into this section so that people can find you. Indexing, search engines can find your articles. Your title and your abstract are informative, attractive, and effective. Structure will help you so much in your academic writing. It's so important to have a clear academic structure. The message, of course, is important. What's the take-home message of the study? The audience, of course, what the target journal is going to be. Where are you going to submit your article? What journal are you going to target? And the structure, message, audience, and structure. The three things to know before you start to write. Indeed, structure is the most crucial element of academic writing. Like watching a movie, like reading a story, readers need to know throughout a paper where they've come from, where they are now, and indeed where they are going. A plot in creative writing. Like anything, like a movie, of course, like a story, like a detective story, you need to have a plot in your academic paper, a story so that readers can follow what's happening. And again, we can provide training to help you develop your storytelling skills in communication in academic writing, to keep people interested, enhance your citation rate. At the end of the day, more people will read your work, more people will cite your work. Your H-index will increase, your reputation will increase, and so will the reputation of your institution. Structure is important. Get in touch with us if we can provide, or you would like us to provide, additional academic training in this respect. You will get your work published if you pick an important research question. That is, of course, your problem, to find an important, identify an important research question. Again, we can also provide training in this, how to identify research questions, how to manage your time, and how to formulate hypotheses and then test them effectively in your research. You will also get your work published if you use the right method to answer your important research question. And keep in mind always that the main problem that reviewers and editors have with academic articles is often in the methods section, because they feel that the wrong method has been used or an inappropriate method has been used. So an important research question, using the right method, and also effective writing, effective communication in English. We can help with the writing, with the communication, and again, provide training, direction, courses, webinars, consultancy services in all of these areas to help you become more effective as a researcher. Keep in mind that science, academic work, has become more cross-disciplinary, but peer review generally has not. People assessing academic papers, editors and reviewers are looking for problems. You need to know that. You need to anticipate that in your writing. The best way to start the process of being effective in your academic writing is having a message, a good audience, and a good academic structure. Winston Churchill said that success consists of going from failure to failure without losing any of your enthusiasm. You will get articles rejected. You will get grant applications rejected. You will not be successful sometimes in job or PhD or postdoc applications. Stay positive. Move on from rejection. Again, we can help with strategies to do this, to manage the experience, because of course academics get rejected probably more often than any other kind of work that you can do in your career. So learn key professional development skills from our training, and thank you once again for listening to this presentation. The 3 things to know before you start to write: your message, your audience, and your structure. My name is Gareth Dyke. Thank you so much for listening. This has been a presentation brought to you by Diffusion Editing. Check us out online and please get in touch with us, and look forward to seeing you again in a future webinar presentation.